Roofing was a difficult task. It certainly made me have a lot more respect for roofers and what they have to go through. The shed was not that high off the ground, but let me tell you, it sure seems high when you're up there and there's nothing to grab onto. Having to deal with the solar panels too was an added difficulty, but all things considered, it wasn't too hard to make sure that the wires were going where they needed to go and the roof was still fairly sealed and protective, doing what it needed to do. At some point in the process, I started thinking about how I would get power to the shed, and it occurred to me, since I already had a semi-green project going with reusing materials from the old structure, that I should consider using solar power. And I had no idea how to go about installing a solar panel and what sort of batteries I might need, how the inverter would work. But in the end, it really wasn't that hard to install. So I decided to get one 64-watt panel. It's at the back, it's on the south side of the roof. And that goes to a 300 watt, 600 watt burstable inverter that provides AC power to the rest of the shed for lighting and electrical outlets for tools and whatever you might want to plug in. A wonderful moment that I remember in the construction project, right after I installed the solar panel, and the night that I installed it, I connected the wire that goes inside the shed to the controller. I woke up the next morning and came over and looked inside the shed to see if the controller was working. There's a little green LED that comes on when it's receiving power from the panel, and that LED was lit. It was a wonderful feeling. It was really amazing to see the solar panel actually working and doing what it's supposed to do. I originally planned to put a couple of passive air vents up at the top of the roof, but after investigating the solar technology, I thought it might be interesting to have a solar powered fan to help circulate the air and get the hot air out of the shed. And I found a good kit that provided a simple system. It's a 10-watt panel that I installed above the larger 64-watt panel, and it provides 12-volt power to the ventilator fan. It's a passive system. When the sun is out and it's hot, the fan will run, and when the sun is not out, the fan doesn't run. Works great. As I mentioned, I'm not a professional builder, so to take on a project like this, I needed a little help, and I got a lot of it out of a book called Building a Shed by Joseph Traini. He has a sample shed that I very loosely based the Horage storage shed on. It also has a Dutch door, so that's definitely where I got that idea. I used that example to build a custom Dutch door that has a crossbuck pattern on both sides, and I was able to use the old wood that was in the hanging doors of the garage. It fit together in a tongue and groove fashion and worked very well, and I've got a slick looking Dutch door now on the shed. I found out how difficult it was to place a door within a frame. You have to get it to fit just right. It took a lot of measurements and trial and error, but I finally ended up with something that worked pretty well. The old garage had two double hung windows, and it's the only garage from this era I've seen that has these kind of windows in this area, at least. Unfortunately, one of them was missing a bottom sash, so I had to go to a salvage warehouse to find a sash that was close to the right size and modify it slightly, which gave me a new respect for window makers of the time. Both the windows fit perfectly in the shed and are operable with counterweights. I'm very pleased with the outcome. I care about this structure so much that I don't want it blowing away, even if it withstands a hurricane or a tornado. I might pick the whole thing up and carry it off. I attached ground anchors, which wasn't too hard to do. And of course, I had to paint it after it was done to match everything else. I was able to use some of the paint for the new structure that was being built. 15 months may seem like a long time to build a shed, but you have to realize that I have another job, or two actually, and I was pretty much limited to only working on the weekends. Aside from that, I wanted to make sure that every choice I made was exact. I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and to me, this was just as much a work of art as a functional storage shed. In conclusion, I think this was a very worthwhile project, and I've learned a lot. I'm proud of what I've built. I hope others can be inspired by it. I know I've somewhat inspired myself by going through the whole process. Was it difficult? Yes. Did it take time? Yes. But I think it was definitely worth it. In the end, I did the right thing, the green thing. I recycled old materials instead of throwing them away. I've employed solar power instead of taking yet another structure and putting it on the grid. And I also have captured the essence of the garage, which is what I set out to do. I hope people can go inside and really feel what it was like to be in a structure that was some 75 years old. And it's something that'll be there for a long time, and I hope that we can keep the shed and both houses in the family for years to come.